The house felt different when I returned. Not empty, just quieter. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm has passed and left everything rearranged. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, the same place where Marcus once made me breakfast, where I had smiled through a feeling I could not explain. The table was still set the way I had left it that morning. One plate, one cup, a folded napkin. I cleared it slowly. Each movement felt like closing a chapter. I packed away the letters Detective Reeves had returned to me. I did not throw them out. I did not read them again. Some things do not need more attention to lose their power. Caroline's photo still sat on the shelf near the window. I took it down and held it carefully. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not because I caused what happened, but because love alone had not been enough to save her. In the weeks that followed, people asked how I was doing. I gave them simple answers. I'm breathing, I'm resting, I'm learning. The truth was more complicated. Some mornings I woke up grateful, some mornings I woke up angry. Most mornings I just woke up, and that was enough. I started taking walks again, just around the neighborhood at first, then farther. I noticed things I had ignored for years. The sound of birds at dawn, the smell of bread from the corner bakery, the way sunlight softened the edges of everything. Life was still there, waiting. I attended the court hearing quietly. I did not speak, I did not cry. When the sentence was read, I felt something unexpected. Release. Not because justice had been served, but because the story was no longer living inside me alone. Marcus never looked at me again, and I was okay with that. I sold the house the following spring, not because it was painful, but because I was ready to begin somewhere new. I moved into a small apartment near the water. Each morning, I opened the window and let fresh air in. Each night, I slept without fear. People sometimes ask if I forgive him. I tell them this: forgiveness is not something I owe. Peace is something I choose. I do not carry hatred, but I do not carry excuses either. I carry what matters, the memory of love that was real, the strength I did not know I had, the truth that survival is a form of courage. That day, my husband tried to be sweet, and my heart knew better. I listened, and because I did, I am still here. They sat us across from each other in a small interview room. A thick glass wall separated us. Phones hung on cords on each side. I picked mine up with shaking hands. Marcus was already holding his. He looked thinner than I remembered. His hair was perfectly combed, just like always, even now. "Mom," he said, smiling slightly, "I didn't expect to see you here." His voice was calm, polite, almost warm. "I wanted to understand," I said. "That's all." He tilted his head, studying me like I was a stranger. "You always wanted to understand," he said. "That was your problem." The words landed softly, but they cut deep. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do this to me?" He sighed, like I was asking something inconvenient. "You lived too long," he said, "and you had too much." I felt my chest tighten. "I raised you," I said. "I worked 2 jobs. I skipped meals so you could eat." "Yes," he said, "and you never stopped reminding me." That wasn't true. I had never thrown those things in his face. I had been proud to give him everything. "You think love is free," he continued, "but everything has a cost." I closed my eyes for a moment. "What about Caroline?" I asked. "Did she have a cost too?" His jaw tightened for the first time. "She was careless," he said. "She took pills. I just didn't stop her." I felt sick. "And Christmas?" I asked. "The breakfast? The letters?" He smiled again. "I wanted it to feel peaceful," he said. "No one suspects kindness." something inside me went quiet. The part that hoped for denial, for tears, for a mistake. It was all gone. "I would have given you anything," I said softly. "All you had to do was ask." He leaned closer to the glass. "I didn't want permission," he said. "I wanted control." The guard knocked on the door. "Time's up," he said. Marcus stood, still smiling. As he turned to leave, he spoke one last time into the phone. "You should have died that day. It would have been easier for everyone." The line went dead. I sat there long after he was gone, not crying, not shaking, just empty. Later that evening, Detective Reeves found me sitting alone in the hallway. "We've secured the evidence," he said. "He'll be charged, multiple counts." I nodded slowly. "Will he ever get out?" I asked. He shook his head. "No," he said, "he won't." I should have felt relief, but all I felt was grief. Not for the man he was, but for the child he never truly became. As I walked out of the station, the sun was setting. The sky was soft pink and gold. The world was still beautiful, and I was still alive. For the first time in a long time, I understood something clearly. Surviving is not the same as living, and I had to learn how to live again. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. It was warm inside, but I still couldn't stop shaking. They sat me in a small room with gray walls and a metal table. An officer brought me a paper cup of water. I held it with both hands, afraid I'd drop it. Detective Reeves came in a few minutes later. He closed the door gently behind him. "Mrs. Carter," he said, sitting across from me, "before we continue, I need to ask you something difficult." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice anymore. "Do you know if your son has ever been married before his current wife?" I looked at him, confused. "No," I said. "Marcus only married once. I would know." The detective didn't answer right away. He opened a folder and slid a photograph across the table. It was a young woman, late 20s maybe, dark hair, a soft smile. "This is Caroline Brennan," he said. "She was your son's first wife." My chest tightened. "That's not possible," I said. "He never told me he was married." "They were married 15 years ago," he said quietly. "The marriage lasted just under 2 years." I stared at the photo. "What happened to her?" I asked. "She died," he said. "It was ruled an accidental overdose at the time." My ears rang. "But her family always suspected something was wrong," he continued. "There wasn't enough evidence back then." I felt cold all over. "And did Marcus get anything?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "A life insurance payout. $500,000. The room felt like it was spinning. I pressed my hands flat against the table. "You're saying—" I swallowed hard. "You're saying my son did this before?" "We believe so," the detective said. "And this time, we had a witness." The door opened slowly. The maid stepped inside. She wasn't wearing her uniform now, just jeans and a sweater. Her eyes met mine, and she immediately started crying. "I'm so sorry. I tried to warn you sooner." I stood up without thinking and took her hands. "You saved my life," I said. "Why?" She wiped her face with her sleeve. "I heard them talking," she said, "about Christmas, about poison, about how easy it would be." Her voice broke. "I saw your picture on his desk. You reminded me of my mother. She raised me alone too." The detective nodded. "She came to us 2 weeks ago," he said. "She's been recording conversations since then." He slid another page toward me. Printed text messages. My son's words. Cold, precise, cruel. Once she's gone, everything transfers to me. She won't feel a thing. I've been playing the loving son my whole life. I covered my mouth. I felt something inside me crack. Not loudly, but completely. I loved him, even when he ignored me, even when he shut me out. The maid squeezed my hands. You still have a good heart. That's why this hurts. A police officer knocked and leaned into the room. They're bringing him in now, he said. My heart jumped. Can I see him? I asked before I could stop myself. The detective hesitated. I wouldn't recommend it, but I already knew. I needed to look at my son's face to see if there was anything left of the boy I raised. They led me down a hallway, and when I finally saw him, hands cuffed, suit wrinkled, eyes cold, he looked at me, and he smiled. Not with regret, not with fear, but with anger. And in that moment, I realized something that terrified me even more than the murder plot. This wasn't desperation. This was who he had always been. I didn't ask the detective why. Something in his voice told me I didn't want the answer yet. I already left, I said. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel with both of them. I'm parked down the road. Good, Detective Reeves said. Stay there. Do not return to the house. The engine was still running. Heat blasted from the vents, but I couldn't stop shivering. The wrapped gift sat on the passenger seat, silver paper catching the dashboard light. The bow was still perfect. I stared at it like it belonged to another woman, a foolish one. Is my son hurt? I asked. Is Marcus in trouble? There was another pause, longer this time. Mrs. Carter, he said gently, your son is being taken into custody as we speak. My chest tightened. I struggled to breathe. For what? I whispered. When you arrived at the house tonight, did you go inside? No, I said quickly. The maid, she stopped me. She told me to leave. She was terrified. The detective exhaled. That woman saved your life. The words didn't make sense. What? I said. Saved my life from what? I heard papers rustling on his end. His voice changed. Steady, professional, like a doctor delivering news he's given too many times before. We've been investigating your son for 3 weeks, he said. We have evidence that he and his wife were planning to poison you tonight. The goal was to make it look like a heart attack. My vision went dark around the edges. Poison. Heart attack. My son. No, I said. That's not possible. Marcus would never. You have a documented heart condition, he continued. They planned to use that. They would have called 911, played the role of grieving family. The inheritance would transfer without suspicion. Inheritance? I don't have anything, I said weakly. I live on a pension. There was silence. Then, are you aware your late husband had a life insurance policy you were never paid? My mouth went dry. My husband died 40 years ago, I said. The funeral barely covered it. There was a second policy, he said. It was mishandled decades ago. The settlement cleared last month. $2.3 million. The phone slipped from my fingers and landed in my lap. 2.3 million? That money was meant for you, but your son intercepted the letters. He's had access to your mail for over a year. The year of silence suddenly made sense. Marcus hadn't stopped calling because I'd done something wrong. He stopped because I was worth more dead than alive. My stomach lurched. I opened the car door just in time and vomited onto the frozen grass. Nothing came up but bile and regret. I trusted him, I whispered when I could breathe again. I raised him alone. I gave him everything. I know. That's why this hurts. A patrol car pulled up behind me, red and blue lights flashing across the road. An officer stepped out and approached my window with careful kindness. Mrs. Carter, he said, we're going to take you somewhere safe. As I followed the cruiser toward town, past houses glowing with Christmas lights and families laughing inside, I realized something had broken inside me. Not loudly, quietly. Something I would never get back. And somewhere behind us in that beautiful house, my son was learning that his plan had failed, but I didn't yet know how far his betrayal really went. The maid's fingers dug into my arm like claws. Not hard enough to bruise, just desperate enough to stop me. Her eyes were wide, frantic, darting between me and the massive white colonial house behind her, as if it might lunge forward and swallow us both. The December wind snapped her black uniform against her legs while she pulled me away from the front door. "Mrs. Carter," her voice cracked. "Please don't go in there. You need to leave, right now." I stared at her, confused, my hand still clutching the gift I'd spent an hour wrapping, a soft gray cashmere scarf, folded just right, tucked into silver paper, tied with a perfect bow. I'd redone that bow 3 times until it looked worthy of my son. Worthy of Marcus Carter. My only child. The one who hadn't spoken to me in 12 months, until 3 days ago. "What?" I asked. The word came out small, distant. "I don't understand. My son invited me. I'm here for Christmas dinner." She swallowed hard and glanced back at the house again. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, warm golden light spilled across polished marble floors. A Christmas tree stood in the entryway, at least 15 feet tall, covered in white lights and silver ornaments. Everything looked perfect, peaceful, safe, which somehow made her fear worse. "I could lose my job for this," she whispered, "but I can't let you walk in there. Please, get in your car, drive away. Don't come back." My knees went weak. I was Evelyn Carter, 73 years old. I'd driven 2 hours from my apartment in Bridgeport to this mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. For a year, Marcus hadn't returned my calls, hadn't answered my letters, hadn't acknowledged my birthday, Thanksgiving, or the 50 voicemails I'd left begging him to tell me what I'd done wrong. Then, last Tuesday, my phone rang. His voice had been flat, cold. "Come for Christmas dinner, Mom. Saturday, 6 p.m. Now this woman, this stranger, was telling me to leave. "Is Marcus okay?" My voice shook. "Is he hurt? Is something wrong?" She hesitated, long enough that my heart started pounding. "He's fine," she said finally. Her accent was thick, her name tag reading Anissa. "But you're not safe here. I have a mother too. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't warn you." A shadow moved behind the hallway window. Tall, male. My breath caught. "Go," whispered Anissa, tears filling her eyes. "Please, just Bo." I stumbled backward. My heel caught the edge of the driveway and I nearly fell, catching myself against the hood of my 10-year-old Camry. The car looked small and tired next to the circular fountain and the mansion that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire nursing career. Anissa was already moving away, disappearing toward a side door, her shoes crunching against the gravel. I stood there frozen as the cold burned my lungs. Then, my phone rang. The sound was sharp in the quiet night, slicing through my thoughts. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Hello?" I asked. "Mrs. Carter? This is Detective Marcus Reeves with the Greenwich Police Department. Are you currently at 847 Lakeshore Drive?" The world tilted. That was my son's address. "Yes," I whispered. I just arrived." There was a pause. Then he said, very carefully, "Ma'am, I need you to leave that location immediately."